Listen carefully. This is not a motivational talk. This is not encouragement. This is a recall signal. Something inside you is being stirred on purpose right now because there are things about you that were never meant to be remembered easily. If you had remembered too soon, the mission would have been compromised, the protection breached, and the timeline disrupted. So your memory was softened, delayed, and filtered. You were allowed to forget just enough to survive. You have spent nights feeling isolated, misunderstood, and unseen, replaying conversations in your mind, wondering why connections fade, why friendships collapse without explanation, why romance never seems to fully land, why rooms subtly shift when you enter, and why people react to you before you even speak. And you were told it was a flaw, a personality issue, bad timing, or bad luck. That was a lie designed to keep you small and uncertain. The loneliness you feel is not abandonment, it is containment. It is a holding pattern. It is spiritual insulation while something within you calibrates. You were not removed from people because you are unlovable. You were removed because proximity would have caused interference. Not everyone is meant to have access to you during the forming stage. There is a reason the spirit world recognizes you before people do. There is a reason opposition senses you before allies find you. There's a reason your presence triggers curiosity, admiration, resistance, or discomfort without you trying. Your energy carries information you're not consciously broadcasting yet, but it is still being read. You have zero clue who you truly are in the spirit world or who you returned as, but they know. The subtle resistance you've faced, the unprovoked tests, the sudden endings, and the unexplained delays were not random chaos. They were containment protocols. And the fact that you are still standing, still thinking, still searching, and still breathing with purpose is proof that protection has already been activated around your life. Things that should have destroyed you missed by inches. People who meant harm were removed quietly. Doors that felt like losses were actually reroutes. Before we go any further, if this message is reaching you, comment, "I am chosen" below, not for me, but for alignment, because words anchor awareness into reality. And if you feel this truth settling into your bones, like the video, subscribe and stay close, because these messages are not random, and neither are you. Now, let's go deeper. The isolation was not punishment, it was preparation. The silence was not rejection, it was refinement. You were being taught discernment, emotional independence, and internal authority. You were being trained to stand without external validation, to hear without noise, and to move without applause. When the recall completes, you will understand why you couldn't be everywhere, why you couldn't be everyone's friend, and why your path felt narrow while others wandered freely. Some souls explore, others execute, and you are not late. You are right on time. Point 1. Why your loneliness is not absence but restriction. The first truth you must understand is that spiritual loneliness has nothing to do with social failure. It is not caused by awkwardness, lack of charisma, or emotional deficiency. For the chosen individual, loneliness emerges when access to you must be restricted for preservation. In spiritual systems, proximity equals influence. Whoever has access to your inner world has the ability to shape your direction, distort your clarity, or dilute your assignment. You were never meant to be widely accessible. Your nervous system senses when someone's presence would destabilize your alignment, even if your mind cannot articulate it. This is why certain people feel draining for no logical reason. This is why small talk exhausts you. This is why you feel more yourself in solitude than in crowds. You were built for depth, not dispersion. When you interpret this as loneliness, you mislabel protection as loss. What is actually happening is filtration. Life is removing those who cannot meet you at the depth required to safely engage your essence. This phase feels isolating because your external environment no longer mirrors your internal evolution. But this gap is intentional. It creates space for internal consolidation. You are being kept quiet, not because you lack value, but because what you carry cannot be mishandled. Point 2. The divine protection phase that looks like delay. There is a phase in the chosen path where visible progress slows while invisible reinforcement accelerates. This is the protection phase. In this season, momentum stalls. Opportunities appear and then disappear. People promise support and vanish. You pray and hear silence. This is not neglect. It is encryption. Premature elevation exposes unreinforced structure. A building raised too quickly collapses under its own weight. In the same way, your life is being fortified before it is displayed. God does not rush vessels that must carry weight. Protection often disguises itself as delay, because delay keeps you out of rooms you are not yet meant to dominate. During this phase, you are being trained to operate without applause, validation, or reassurance. Your nervous system is being conditioned for independence from external feedback. This is why solitude deepens. You are learning to hear guidance internally rather than seeking it externally. What feels like stagnation is actually recalibration. When this phase completes, acceleration will not need motivation. It will feel natural, inevitable, and irreversible. Point 3. Why unprovoked opposition follows you. You may have noticed something unsettling, a pattern that keeps repeating no matter where you go or how quietly you move. People turn cold toward you without explanation, not because of something you said or did, but because your presence alone disrupts their internal balance. Authority figures misjudge you, often projecting intentions onto you that do not exist, while peers subtly undermine you through silence, omission, or faintly disguised dismissal. Envy surfaces before you achieve anything visible, before you hold power, status, or proof of progress, and this is the clearest signal of all. This is not coincidence, and it is not bad luck. Certain individuals subconsciously recognize a threat, not to their safety, but to their self-image. You activate questions they worked hard to bury. You mirror potential they abandoned when life became uncomfortable. You remind them of paths they refused to walk, disciplines they avoided, courage they postponed, and integrity they compromised. That reflection creates discomfort, and discomfort seeks relief. Resistance becomes the outlet. You are not attacked for what you do, but for what you represent. Even in silence, your restraint exposes impulsiveness. Your patience highlights their urgency. Your clarity exposes confusion they learn to mask. Your self-control irritates those who rely on chaos to feel alive. This is why opposition often arises before success ever appears. Long before systems validate you, spirits recognize rank. Long before outcomes manifest, energy announces direction. The chosen one attracts friction because friction reveals alignment. Pressure forms where purpose sharpens. This phase is not punishment, it is conditioning. It trains you to remain grounded while misunderstood, to stay composed while misrepresented, and to hold posture when narratives turn against you. You learn authority that does not depend on applause, approval, or consensus. You discover how to stand without explanation and move without permission. Each misjudgment thickens your emotional armor. Each unfair assessment teaches discernment. Each cold shoulder detaches you from the need to be received, and when this phase ends, opposition loses access to your emotional center. Their projections fall flat. Their resistance no longer hooks into you. What once disturbed your equilibrium becomes background noise. You move forward with quiet certainty, no longer reacting, no longer explaining, no longer shrinking, fully aware that the resistance was never about stopping you, only about revealing who you were becoming. Point 4. Memory sealed, authority intact. You returned with your memory sealed, but your authority intact, and that is the detail most people never understand. You are not wandering through life confused. You are moving through it with something ancient, operating beneath the surface. This is why you move with instinctive discernment before logic has time to catch up. You sense danger without evidence. You withdraw without justification. You feel guided without explanation. You make decisions that later prove correct, even when you could not explain them in the moment. This is not anxiety, not paranoia, not overthinking. It is subconscious remembrance. Some knowledge is not stored in the mind. It is embedded in the system itself. Your nervous system remembers what your conscious mind cannot yet retrieve. It remembers patterns of survival, truth, and deception. It remembers what pressure feels like and how to move through it without breaking. That is why certain environments feel wrong instantly before anything happens. That is why certain people feel familiar beyond logic, as if you have known them long before this lifetime. And that is also why others trigger an unexplainable resistance in you, even when they appear harmless. Your body reacts faster than language because it recognizes energy, not appearances. You are not lost, you are dormant, and dormancy is not weakness. Dormancy is strategic concealment. Nothing powerful reveals itself before the right moment. Your spirit has always known how to navigate pressure, solitude, and restraint, and that knowledge did not disappear when your memory was sealed. It went underground. It became instinct. It became discernment. It became silence. This is why you have survived seasons that should have broken you. This is why isolation refined you instead of destroying you. This is why you're calm in situations where others panic, and restless in places where others feel comfortable. Your system is calibrated differently because it carries prior authority, not learned confidence. When the time comes, you will not need to be taught who you are. Activation does not arrive as information. It arrives as recognition. When memory returns, it will not feel new, dramatic, or shocking. It will feel obvious, like something you always knew but were never allowed to say out loud. And when that moment arrives, you will realize that nothing in your life was random, delayed, or wasted. Every pause was protection. Every silence was preparation. Every sealed memory was restraint. You did not forget who you were. You were simply waiting until remembering would no longer endanger the mission. Point 5. Why romantic connections struggle to stabilize. Romantic difficulty is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the protection phase, because from the outside it appears contradictory. How can someone so perceptive, so grounded, and so quietly magnetic struggle with intimacy? Many are drawn to your light, your emotional depth, your calm presence, the way you listen without judgment and speak with intention. Your energy feels safe, stabilizing, and almost healing. But attraction is not the same as readiness. Being close to you is not a casual experience. Intimacy with you requires emotional maturity, nervous system regulation, self-awareness, and spiritual responsibility. It requires a person to meet themselves honestly, to confront unresolved wounds, and to regulate their reactions instead of projecting them. Most people desire what you offer, but they cannot sustain the internal environment required to remain connected to it. They want the warmth without the work, the depth without the dissent, and the peace without the discipline that peace demands. This is why relationships with you often begin intensely, with strong chemistry, fast bonding, and grand declarations, and then slowly destabilize or collapse. Your presence accelerates truth. It exposes patterns, triggers insecurities, and brings unhealed parts to the surface. Growth becomes unavoidable around you, and growth is uncomfortable. Growth asks for accountability, emotional resilience, and the willingness to evolve beyond familiar coping mechanisms. Not everyone is willing to grow at your pace or in your direction. So instead of forcing bonds that would eventually drain your energy, fragment your focus, or derail your path, the protection phase dissolves them early. Connections fade, circumstances interfere, and misunderstandings arise, not as punishment, but as preservation. This isn't rejection, it is redirection. Solitude in this season is not emptiness, it is safety. It keeps your nervous system regulated, your vision undistorted, and your trajectory intact. Until alignment replaces attraction, until compatibility replaces chemistry, being alone is safer than compromising your rhythm, your values, or your calling. Love is not absent from your life. It is delayed. Not because you are unworthy, unlovable, or too much, but because premature attachment would dilute your momentum, soften your clarity, and pull you into lessons you have already outgrown. Point 6. When protection transitions into positioning. Protection does not last forever, and that is something your spirit already knows, even if your mind has struggled to trust it. There comes a precise moment when isolation loosens its grip and alignment begins to surface. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet certainty that feels almost ordinary until you realize everything has shifted. This transition is subtle because it is internal first. Nothing outside rushes you. Nothing demands proof. The right people begin to recognize you instantly, not because you explain yourself better, but because your presence no longer leaks uncertainty. Conversations start to feel effortless, as if the tension that once required constant monitoring has dissolved. Trust forms without explanation because there is no longer a contradiction between who you are and how you show up. You are not performing. You are not justifying. You are not masking wounds behind charisma or silence. This is resonance, the kind that cannot be forced or faked. Protection evolves into positioning only when your internal structure becomes strong enough to remain stable under visibility. Before this phase, exposure would have fractured you. Now, it refines you. Solitude no longer feels like punishment or waiting. It feels complete, grounded, and sufficient. You are no longer seeking connection to escape emptiness, to soothe loneliness, or to validate worth. Instead, connection becomes a complement to fullness rather than a remedy for lack. This is a critical distinction because it changes the energy of everything you touch. When this phase activates, momentum returns naturally. You are no longer pushing life forward. Life begins to move with you. Doors open without force because resistance is no longer required to keep you safe. Recognition follows without demand because you are no longer asking to be seen, only allowing yourself to be present. This is not coincidence, and it is not luck. It is readiness. It is the result of a nervous system that no longer flinches at attention, a mind that no longer over-explains, and a spirit that trusts its own weight. You were hidden until you could stand visible without shrinking or hardening. Now alignment responds because you are no longer outgrowing yourself. Point 7. The consequences of remembrance. When remembrance activates, confusion ends, not gradually, not through force, but through a quiet internal realignment where everything that once felt scattered suddenly falls into place. You stop chasing validation because you no longer leak energy outward, trying to be seen, understood, or approved by those who were never meant to recognize you. You stop explaining yourself because clarity has replaced justification, and explanation is no longer necessary when your presence speaks with coherence. You stop shrinking to fit expectations that were never designed for your frequency, roles that required you to abandon your truth just to be tolerated. As this shift locks in, your presence stabilizes in a way that cannot be imitated. Your nervous system calms, your mind sharpens, your decisions become precise, not rushed, not emotional, but anchored. Your boundaries strengthen without aggression or guilt. You no longer defend them. They simply exist, and others instinctively adjust. Those who once doubted you, dismissed you, or underestimated you feel the shift without you announcing it, without a single word needing to be spoken. You do not become louder, more performative, or more forceful. You become clearer, and clarity is far more disruptive than noise. This is the return, not to who you were shaped into by pressure, trauma, or survival, but to who you always have been beneath conditioning, coping mechanisms, and false narratives imposed during vulnerable seasons. The loneliness you endured was never evidence of abandonment or punishment. It was proof of value. It was containment. It was strategic protection while your internal architecture was being rebuilt away from interference, envy, distortion, and premature exposure. You were not hidden because you were weak. You were protected because you were essential, because what you carry cannot be rushed, diluted, or mishandled. Now remembrance has activated, and with it comes an internal authority that no external opinion can override. You are no longer searching for yourself in reactions, relationships, or outcomes. You are anchored. Comment, "I am chosen," again if this confirmed what your spirit already knew before language caught up to it. Stay aligned. The protection phase does not last forever, but its purpose echoes for eternity, shaping how you move, how you discern, and how you remain untouched by what once tried to define you.